He's the man, he's the myth, he's the legend, he's the scientist with all the answers to all the questions. It's time for another episode of Alex's Science Corner.
Thank you. No, please, thank you.
What's going on in the wide world of science, my friend?
Okay. First story is about they've had a commercial satellite that docked with another satellite. This is the first time this has happened. And the point of this is this satellite is a maintenance satellite. Now, it's not actually going to fix the satellite it's docked to, but what it does is it flies up near the satellite. It orbits the other satellite for a little bit, taking pictures of the other satellite so that the engineers can figure out if there's anything seriously wrong with the satellite that they're trying to continue having operate.
So there's definitely something going on that they wanted to do this with the
Right. Well, there's a lot of communication satellites in geostationary orbit, and geostationary orbit means that they generally stay above the equator, one spot over the equator all the time, because their orbit is 24 hours long. So when they're orbiting, they're staying above a general location above the equator,
and matching the speed of the Earth.
Well, it's not matching the speed of the Earth. What it is it's at a distance called geostationary orbit, where the orbital period for a satellite to go one orbit is 24 hours. And since the Earth rotates at 24 hours, its orbit it's the equivalent of staying above one spot on the Earth.
Okay.
Above the equator. But there's a lot of satellites up there, and these satellites are really expensive. And when it's time for these satellites to die because they've either run out of fuel or something else has gone wrong, they have to push these satellites out of that orbit and then put a new satellite in. And what this maintenance satellite is doing is it takes pictures of the satellite so the engineers can determine if it's worth continue operating the satellite. And then it'll dock to the satellite and act as its fuel reserve to extend the life of the satellite. So it docks and then it can maneuver the satellite, because even though it's in orbit, it still has to have its orbit adjusted sometimes. Or it has to do occasional rotations. And that's what this satellite does. It provides extra fuel that the original satellite may have run out of. And the interesting thing about this particular satellite, or this maintenance satellite, is that when that satellite it's attached to really is done with its life, it can then push that satellite farther out
into space,
to take it out of that position,
out of orbit,
and then fly back and attach itself to another satellite.
Oh, so it's going to be reusable.
Yeah, until the maintenance satellite runs out of fuel.
Okay.
So the original satellite is called the MEV-1. They are planning on launching a second one of these. Right now, it's its version of trials. They're going to launch 2 or 3 of these to see if the.
And when you say who's is this a NASA project or is
no,
this a commercial
this is
project?
It's a commercial project. It was launched. It's an American company, but it was launched on a Russian Proton rocket. And it's a commercial project because these are commercial satellites.
Okay.
And so the companies that own the original satellites, they want to extend the life. Instead of buying and launching a brand new satellite, you launch one of these maintenance satellites, which is cheaper, and that will extend the life. And they're just trying to right now figure out, we can now, first of all, can we do it? And how much is the total cost going to be compared to launching a replacement satellite?
Oh, and I'm thinking from the business perspective, boy, this can be, they can rent this satellite. Okay, so once the satellite that it's working with is resolved and it detaches, they can then rent it out to somebody else who owns another satellite.
They send the MEV to the next satellite that they want.
Right, but the owner of the MEV can.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
But they're right now trying to figure out if it's cost effective, and this is the whole process. But this is the first time you've had 2 satellites, neither of which has any humans inside of it, dock to each other. So that was some big news and gives an opportunity for future space maintenance. Next story I'm going to be talking about is this past week passed away one of the key figures of the American space program, Katherine Johnson. She was, first of all, one of the very first African Americans to get a PhD. In 1937, she was the first Black or African American to get a PhD in mathematics,
Very
which
smart
is
woman.
when you're talking about 1937 during the Jim Crow era. She was one of the first people to be integrated into graduate school. She was hired by NASA, and she was one of the people who, if you've seen the movie Hidden Figures, it's about this group of black women who were mathematicians at NASA. All of the orbital calculations that NASA did until the 70s were done by these women. All the mathematics to make spacecraft go into orbit, the moon landings, the math that was needed for that were done by these ladies. All the rocket launches that involved people, the mathematics to have them were done by these people.
And if the movie is historically accurate, too, computers were coming into play at that point, too. And these, one in particular, made a point of learning how to program this machine, which was phenomenal.
Right. And
back in the punch card
right.
days.
Katherine Johnson, she was one of the leaders of this team. And again, this is during the Jim Crow era where they had segregated bathrooms, segregated water fountains.
They had it in NASA in the 60s, too.
Right. And so because of these people, because of these mathematicians that, made the spacecraft work, they were known as hidden figures because there's so many people involved with the NASA to get any rocket launched. These people were the ones who did the math. There were computers, but they were known as human computers because they did all the math that at the time the computers couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And so this year, or last week, she passed away at the age of 101.
God bless her. Yeah.
So, just wanted to say a few words about, again, she was an incredibly important person for the NASA.
I think Barack Obama gave her the Congressional Medal of Honor, too.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, no, Congressional Medal. There's a civilian version.
The civilian.
Right, the Congressional Medal of Honor is for military heroism. There's I think, the Medal of Freedom, I believe it's called. Okay. Yeah.
All right, anything else to add, folks?
Any other questions about that?
No, I just think she was a great role model for girls today. Abroad, forget race. I think she was just a wonderful role model.
Yeah, important work. It's tough because I've heard people say, "Oh, women can't do math." No. There's no difference between men or women when it comes to math. It's
just preconceived notions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on that note, we shall wrap it up. But if you'd like to give us a call and ask Alex any science-related question, whether it's about these two stories or the coronavirus, feel free to call at 203-837-9924.